areas that it indicates, like if you look at the dam service routes, it becomes difficult because there are men need to also look at and police those areas, and also it's being overtaken by time. So there is need to review this policy and specifically also accommodate issues of controlled mining activities. Then secondly, we looked at the policy on open air worship. We said that there is currently a bylaw at local authority level to regulate this, but policing and enforcement is not adequate. So what needs to be done, we say there is need for enforcement, there is need for education, and there is also need for engagement with the worship sector to realize, to know the bylaw and also to follow the bylaw in essence. Then they also looked at the refuse removal bylaw. It is currently there, but it was done at a time when there was formal employment a lot and didn't envisage an economy which is predominantly informal. And also we say that it doesn't give the shop owner mandate for waste management in the surrounding area outside their premise. So that's the gap that we saw from that policy. It also needs, then what does it need to do? We say that it needs to be reviewed and specifically to incorporate issues of waste separation at source, and also to empower vendors and vendors associations and business associations to sanction each other and improve waste management and waste culture within their areas of operation. We also said that it also, to buttress this point, this policy, there is need for ward development committees, to entrench ward development committees that are working in their communities, being known and recognized by their communities. Then we also said there is the issue of arresting powers of the municipal police. We said currently there is no policy that gives them the arresting powers, but it's something that has already been tabled at national level. What's needed is more advocacy and engagement on that issue. Then there is also the need for a municipal court. And we said currently there is no policy, but it has also been tabled at national levels. There is need for more advocacy and more engagement. Then we also looked at penalties. We said our penalties are very low and they are not deterrent enough. They don't give strict enforcement because you can actually afford to litter and pay, and then litter and pay again, and litter and pay because they are too cheap. We said that we need to review them and also learn from our regional kind of best practices in how our colleagues and friends in the region have also made stricter and tougher penalties on littering and also on environmental crimes. And we said that having a court will also help to increase the levels, because if you look at our Zimbabwean system currently, there is a level at which someone can pay a fine at every level of law enforcement. But we felt maybe having a municipal court can increase the level of penalties that we can charge, especially for environmental crimes, and that will then increase and improve them. Thank you very much.
At land degradation. So we came up with types of land degradation. We're looking at illegal mining, illegal sand abstraction, stream bank cultivation, and trenching. So illegal mining, we identified the drivers as economic problems. We see that illegal mining has become a source of income for many. Then the solutions, we're now looking at the engagement of the communities. We encourage our whistleblowers. They tell the authorities where people are illegally mining, and the authorities will take effective action. We also came up with educational awareness campaigns. Some people are ignorant out there, so it's our responsibility to educate them on the effects of illegal mining. Then the second time, you're looking at illegal sand abstraction. The drivers were economic hardships, and also we identified the expansion and growth of the city as the main cause for sand abstraction. For the solutions, we're actually encouraging Bulawayo City Council to come up with an all-inclusive service. We see that there are designated sand extraction sites, two of them, but however, they only offer the sand and no other service. So I encourage Bulawayo City Council to come up with an all-inclusive service which involves the digging and delivery. Then also, we were looking at introducing incentives for community policing. The community knows where those poachers are poaching their sand. So they're the ones who can be responsible to police their area. So as council, we're saying there's a chance, well, when those poachers no longer have access to the sand, we're saying once the poachers no longer have access to the sand, because the communities are now stringent and enforcing the law in their areas, there's much more revenue generated at the designated sites. So that we can come up with an incentive for those communities who are guarding jealously their lands. The council can maybe share the revenue with them, 20-80%, or any other percentage that may be agreed on. Then we're also looking at designating more legal sites. Instead of two, the supply and demand curve, we cannot really cater for everyone who needs sand from the two designated sites. So there might be need to expand. And also, we might want to engage and recognize sand extractors associations. Then the other type of land degradation, we're looking at stream bank cultivation. The drivers are economic hardships, and that at the stream banks, there's already employment. There's vulelo garden work as fully. There's no need to turn line from savings. So we're now saying the solutions. We might try and drill and equip our boreholes and also develop our community gardens. We know that there's a corner, but we can have more. Also, the enforcement of bylaws. The rangers are making an effort to demarcate restricted areas. So we have to be more strict. Then the other issue is trenching. The causes or the drivers, we have ICT technology development and also underground cabling by electricity distributors. Then the solutions, the reasons for the underground cabling by electricity distributors, they identified trenching is actually more secure and safe for infrastructural development. So now, as a solution, let's meet halfway. They can have the underground cabling and also have overhead cabling to reduce effects of retrenching in the CBD or on the roads.
I'm going to present on stuff that we discussed in the pollution group. The first thing that we looked at is air pollution. One of the key drivers of air pollution is industrial activities, manufacturing sector, and A proposed solution for that is to promote green technologies such as precipitators and also to install pollution abatement equipment. Also to curb on industrial pollution, we have use of renewable sources of energy. For example, we have boilers that use coal. So instead of using boilers that then increase emissions and pollution, we can actually use renewable sources such as solar. And then we looked at mining. Mining is a key contributor of air pollution, and one of the solutions to reduce the amount of air pollution is to use electrostatic dust suppressors. So they'll basically capture all the dust and make sure that it's not being released into the environment. We also have burning of waste by communities and lack of education as key drivers of air pollution. People normally do this because they lack education or because they do not have enough services to collect their waste. So at this point, I'm going to ask if you can hear me. Can you please clap once? Clap once. Thank you. To continue, burning of waste, for us to reduce pollution through burning of waste, we need to increase and expand our sanitary landfills. We need to expand them and to grow them so that we're able to take up all the waste coming from residential and industrial sites. And we also need to promote our waste to energy project so that we have less waste going to the dump site. And then we also need to have stringent measures. For example, if you burn your waste, we educate you. Burn your waste, you'll be given fine. You have to pay a fine. The next source of pollution is water pollution, and we've got various types. So we've got public waste streams, so that are polluted from burst sewers. We also have industrial effluent, so water that's coming from industries with chemicals and all the dirt, and sometimes pharmaceutical products, agricultural products. The key drivers of pollution, we say it's untreated effluent waste. So our industries are not treating their effluent water enough. And to help reduce that, we spoke about installation of pre-treatment plants. We need to have more treatment plants within industry. And how can we increase the use of pre-treatment plants? Regulation. So before, especially with big external companies, if you're Samsung, if you're Unilever, you should not be allowed to operate your plant because they're multi-billion-dollar franchises global. So we cannot have big companies such as that just getting away without pre-treatment of water. We also need to increase the skills so that we have more people that are providing those pre-treatment plants locally. Because sometimes it may be issue of availability, and if the service is not available, companies will just they will just continue without installing them. So if we can increase the number of people providing that service. And then we also looked at collapsed sewages. So we said we need to rehabilitate and upgrade our sewer systems and sewer infrastructure. And then the last point was improper use of sewers. So we have people throwing into sewer systems solid materials that result in the blockages of some of these pipes. So we need to educate on proper usage of sewer systems. If you can hear me, can you please clap once? Clap once. Thank you. The next thing is land pollution. So to help curb land pollution, one of the key drivers, we say, is solid waste management. Solid waste management is one of the key drivers of land pollution. So I'm sure we can all see outside. If you go outside, there's paper, there's food waste, and there's all those things. And so how then do we deal with solid waste management? The first thing is environmental education. Environmental education in schools, in residential areas, and also in our industry. Because sometimes industry, they may look innocent, but they also sometimes dump in certain places because they do not have a service. And also then the second point was to increase plant or equipment for solid waste management. So we need more facilities for solid waste management, either from private waste companies or from our city council. We also need to promote recycling, because when people know and understand the value that they get from recycling, they are able to keep that waste instead of throwing the plastic into the environment, but keep it and reclaim the value later on through selling and recycling. And then another solution to reduce land pollution is to increase waste to energy projects. So there's some materials that cannot be recycled. One of the key things that can be done is to burn it and to retrieve the energy. And then the last point is noise pollution. Noise pollution is one of the key issues. So someone would just wake up and say, today I want to have a function at my house, and that is noise pollution in our residential areas. We also have industrial activities. Earlier on it was mentioned that we've got some industries that are operating very, very close to residential areas. How do we then update that? We spoke about regulating, licensing of, and having legislation to monitor noise decibels. So if you are going to be doing your marketing, you don't just get your speakers and wake up doing some tutucha in people's houses. That's not allowed. But in Harare, we've got an example of Harare City Council, which is actually monitored. So if you want to do your marketing, you don't just grab a radio and start making noise for people, but you get licensed and you get approval and people get notified. We also spoke about churches, particularly speakers. Some churches can be very loud. We've got churches operating in the CBD, with a church very close to offices up by Net 1H. Every lunch hour, and sometimes they go on for 2-3 hours, and you're supposed to be working, you want to be talking to clients, and someone is busy praying. We want to pray, we want to religion, but in a manner that's sustainable. And then the last thing, I'm sure we're all familiar with this, it's beer halls and nightclubs. Beer halls and nightclubs, those are also a source of pollution. Again, the solution to reducing the noise pollution is to legislate or gazette, or make sure that the amount, if you want to have an event, make sure you notify the authorities, make sure the noise decibels, the amount of noise is measured and it's within a certain specified approved quantity. If you can hear me, can you please clap once? Clap once. Thank you.
Looking at issues to do with climate change. So we identified about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 key drivers. The first one being industrial activities. And the impacts that we agreed on is that once there is industrial activity, there are gas emissions and there are challenges of solid waste and water pollution. Then what did we agree as solutions to address this? There is issues to do with landfills, proper solid and liquid waste management, waste to energy initiatives, and controlled emissions. Then our second driver was lack of alternative energy sources, which is forcing everyone to use firewood. What then does it cause? The impacts are deforestation and global warming. What do we need to do? There's need for legal interventions in terms of cutting down of trees and coming up with alternative energy sources, your green energy, encouraging people to use solar gadgets or any other forms of energy. Then the other cause or driver is the issue of wildfires. Its impact is global warming and air pollution. What do we need to do? We need to put punitive policies for anyone who lights wildfires, and also teach people the practices of putting up fire guards. Then another challenge or driver is poor waste management. I think that's why we are here, to see how we can manage our waste. we agreed that the impact is it will result in gas emissions, your ethane, methane. Then there is issue of global warming and depletion of the ozone layer. So what do we need to do? We need to invest in landfills, waste to energy initiatives, where we are saying for all that litter which is traveling us, let's develop biogas digesters so that we use that energy positively, as well as encouraging recycling initiatives so that we can manage our litter. Last but not least, one of the key drivers is vehicle emissions, and its impact is your gas emissions, global warming, and depletion of the ozone layer. I don't know what we can do, but there was outcry to say those guys who do the deliveries of sand, some of their vehicles are road unworthy, and if that vehicle is in front of you, you cannot even see what is before you because the pollution is just too much. So we need to come up with initiatives to ensure that we put punitive measures for such and deal with any road unworthy vehicles. I think if we do that, we will have done a good thing for ourselves. One clap for me. Another one. Another one. Thank you.